This week on Catholic Pour Over.
You might have had a crappy Lent and all of your sacrifices have gone by the wayside and you're just beating yourself up over all of it. Maybe you had a great Lent. Wonderful. But the thing to do now is to be the thing that he asks of us, which is fertile soil. Like, be with me. Receive me. Let your heart be soft in front of me.
Father Patrick Schultz, welcome to Catholic Pour Over.
Thanks, Father Damian. Thanks, Maria. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you guys.
Thanks for accepting our invitation.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
So we want to follow up. So at the beginning of Lent, we had Mother Natalia on.
Great.
And she's with Christ the Bridegroom Monastery. And we asked her why the name Christ the Bridegroom. And she said it's because of Holy Week being the week of the bridegroom. So
yeah.
I thought we could pour over that and Holy Week a little bit more with you.
Yeah. No, that's great. So in the Latin Church, which we are here in the Diocese of Cleveland, we're Latin Rite Catholics. We refer to that week immediately preceding Easter as just Holy Week, which it is. It's Holy Week. But the Eastern Rite, they've got they got a more poetic style to them, I think. They've got a more mystical side to them. So they refer to that week, Holy Week, as the week of the bridegroom. The week of the bridegroom, which shines a spotlight really on the mystical, theological reality of what's unfolding in these celebrations of Palm Sunday and Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday. Like, it's not just a week in which we reflect on the fact that God in Christ, in flesh, suffered and died for us and then rose for us. Yeah, that is what he's doing, but there's a character, there's a shape, there's a nuance to it, which is that this is an expression of God's unbelievable love manifested for humanity as bridegroom. There's this beautiful line in John's Gospel where it says 6 days before Passover, Jesus comes into the house of Martha and Mary, and she takes a jar of costly aromatic nard, this huge liter of nard, this spike nard, which would have cost so much money in the ancient world. It would, think about colognes being sold today. They're sold by small ounces, right? And they can be hundreds of dollars, these bottles of cologne today, but that's the same in the ancient world. This would have been someone's years of savings. And she takes the alabaster jar, breaks it open, and in Mark's telling of this story, he has Mary pouring it over his head. In John's, it's the feet, but yeah, I like the head version. Both are beautiful, but I like the head version. So Jesus, 6 days before Passover, before the Passion, he's drenched in spikenard, which, if you've ever smelled it, it is so pungent. It's so pungent. And he says, this is so significant that wherever the gospel is proclaimed, this will be told, what she's done for me. She did this to prepare me for my burial. To understand the significance of that, the connection to the week of the bridegroom, Holy Week, all these things, you got to understand what nard is in the Bible. So scripturally, nard is this gloriously fragrant perfume made from flowers from the Himalayas. It's really hard to get, really rare. And it appears specifically in the center of the Bible in the Song of Songs. Which is Song of Songs, which is, a lot of Catholics really aren't super familiar with the Song of Songs because it's the only book in the Bible that doesn't mention God by name, but the ancient rabbis, they said that the Song of Songs they would say all scripture is holy, but the Song of Songs is the holy of holies, that it is the centerpiece. It is the book in which we see allegorically on display the love of bridegroom for bride, the Lord for Israel, God for humanity, Yahweh for each individual soul. That's the allegory, right? And the very center of the Bible is this book, the Song of Songs, and the very center of the Song of Songs is this repetition of the word nard. And it was Mikhail Waldstein, who was the guy who translated John Paul II's Theology of the Body into English. It was Waldstein who pointed this out, that this couplet of nard, nard is you can think of it this way, it's the end of the first half of the Bible, and it's the beginning of the second half of the Bible, that the centerpiece is this repetition, this hinge of nard. And what is nard in the scriptures? It's the fragrance of the openness of the bride, both her heart and her body, to the bridegroom. So what does Jesus smell like as he's going into the events of Passion Week? He smells like the openness of the bride to the bridegroom as he's agonizing in the garden, as he's being hauled before Annas and Caiaphas and Pilate, as he's hanging upon the cross, as he's buried in the tomb, and as he arises from the tomb. What does Easter morning smell like? It smells like the bursting forth fragrance of nard and this fragrance of the bride. There's so much more we can talk about there, but I'm going to hit pause on myself before I just become a monologue. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts on the week of the bridegroom, Holy Week. Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. And in my own faith journey, it was learning at Jesus' bridegroom and his love, and it being explained to me that way through theology of the body that really converted my heart and deepened my relationship with God, that it is of how much God loves me.
Yeah.
And I think I went most of my life never hearing this before.
That's
and
so
it's the
many
most
Catholics,
beautiful, and it's the most beautiful thing, and learning it, I can never go back. I mean, so it's beautiful. So I already thank you for everything you've already explained so far about it.
Nice.
And you are Maria's pastor. Isn't that cool?
Little secret here.
Yeah, which is
right.
great. And I mean, if we're telling secrets, it's not a secret, but Father Patrick was at one point in my youth group, and he was one of my teens at St. Mary's in Hudson. So we've been friends for quite some time, and it's wonderful to have you on.
Yeah.
I too was not given formation in the theology of the body when I was in seminary. I kind of found it on my own.
Yeah.
And a lot of the pieces were already there. It's kind of like you have the Gloria or you have the Creed, but man, sometimes you focus in and something just strikes you. And I think that's the way. Like I had the tradition presented before me, but I hadn't opened it up or understood it. And when I finally came to understand who this bridegroom is, and that the reason the church is she is because what does Jesus want to do? This is my body given for you. This is my blood poured out for you. So everything that God has, the Father, he gives us in the Son. Everything the Son has, he gives us in himself. And Our Lady, then Mary, becomes the great model for how it is that we are to receive that.
Totally.
So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like as we approach the liturgies of Holy Week?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell this story, and this involves you, because it was 2017 when we went to the Holy Land for the first time. That group of priests, we went on pilgrimage. And if you remember, the day that I think it was day 4 of the trip, we were making our way through Jesus's, basically his Holy Week schedule, and we made our way to the Basilica of All Nations in the Garden of Gethsemane. So at the end of the day, we were exhausted, and we joined that Mexican pilgrimage group with their bishop. So we had a Eucharistic Holy Hour in the Garden of Gethsemane, and so the bishop would get up there. We were all surrounding the altar, and there's this beautiful stone in front of the altar where, according to tradition, this is where Jesus fell in his agony, and when he's in the garden. And I can't believe I'm telling this story, but it's a true story. So we are in this church late at night. Holy hour is happening. So we're praying a holy hour in Gethsemane. The bishop gets up every few minutes, says a few words. I could understand Spanish for a little bit there. I was just listening and just taking it in. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I'm done listening. I'm just going to close my eyes and pray. And then after a few moments, my head's like falling down, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane making a holy hour with Jesus. And what woke me up was my snoring. So I was one of those like jolting myself awake. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like the one place you're not allowed to fall asleep making a holy hour in Gethsemane, I just did. I never felt closer to Peter and James and John as I did in that moment. It was really incredible. So, all right, that happens. And then I laugh, it was fine. And I close my eyes, and all of a sudden, like this scene unfolds where I could hear Jesus like on the rock in front of me. I could hear the sound of blood coming off of his nose and dripping onto the rock, like the sound of like the thickness of a liquid pooling on a rock. And I open my eyes, spiritually speaking, and I see him just face down in this agony upon the rock. And I see the enemy kind of slither up to the Lord, just like he does in that scene in the Passion. And I hear the enemy say to him, pointing to the blood just sitting on the rock, he says, so will their hearts be, meaning all of humanity. He's trying to say to Jesus, what you're about to pour out of you, as you said, Father Damian, that gift of your love and your life pouring out of you, it's not going to go in. It's not going to soak anywhere. It's just going to pool on the surface of humanity. Like, it's a waste. And then, like, in my spirit, in my prayer, I hear the faint echo of Mary at the Annunciation, be it done unto me according to thy word. And I hear Jesus, again, in his own humanity saying, not my will, but thy will be done. Like her yes, and her prevenient receptivity, we could put it that way, the fact that she already said yes to receive the fullness of his grace, that's the very thing that gave him the courage to say, at least I know, if nowhere else, the gift of my sacrifice is going deep into the fertile soil of her heart. That's where it's going, right? So like, what is the bridegroom asking of his bride at the start of Holy Week? Like you might have had a crappy Lent and all of your sacrifices have gone, by the wayside and you're just beating yourself up over all of it. Maybe you had a great Lent, wonderful, but the thing to do now is to be the thing that he asks of us, which is fertile soil. Like, be with me, receive me, let your heart be soft in front of me. I know you guys recently had a conversation with Father David talking about the Franciscans. And St. Francis of Assisi would go up into the mountains of Alverna getting ready for Holy Week. I don't know if you talked about this, but you could hear Francis crying out over the mountains the phrase, "Love is not loved." Love is not loved. As he's contemplating the crucified, love is not loved. Right? God, who is love, he's like, how is it that he's not loved? How is it that he's not received? Like the invitation from the bridegroom's heart is just simply, I just want to give you this gift. Like, I just need you to open and receive it. And that, I think, as simple as it sounds, it's so incredibly hard for us as modern Americans, as Christians in the 21st century. We just are so obsessed with doing and achieving and earning. Like, you can't earn this. You can't be worthy of this. All you're asked to do is receive it. And the greater the sinner, as Jesus said to Faustina, the greater the sinner, the greater the right he has to my mercy. The greater you've screwed up, the more you have a right to the gift of Holy Week, the week of the bridegroom. Like, I think that's how you prepare. That's how you enter into it. Yeah.
So what about like Holy Thursday in particular, or Good Friday? And as I look at you, I smile because we used to celebrate these liturgies together when you were in the seminary with the other guys. And those were wonderful liturgies. And whether it's at St. Bartholomew Parish or at the cathedral, what might be some thoughts that you have in preparing your heart to receive the divine life that the bridegroom wants to give? And when we talk about the bride, that's us.
Yes.
Baptized, his church.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, 100%. That's why as priests, whenever we get ready to celebrate Mass, we first put on the alb, right? The sign of our baptismal identity. This is first and foremost, that's who I am. I'm called to receive as well. I think I would begin with, so with Holy Thursday, one of the things that always stands out to me, of course, is that powerful moment of the Mandatum when Jesus arises from the table, disrobes his garments, ties the towel around his waist, fills the basin, and then descends to the feet of his apostles. And you have to imagine, modern feet are still gross, right? Imagine ancient feet where people didn't have pumice stones and soap and showers and all you had was leather sandals and
no pedicures.
Dirt. Yeah. Oh my gosh, these were nasty, gnarly feet. And I think about how. So Jesus on the cross, his side is pierced by the soldier, and out comes that flow of blood and water. That's the river of mercy, his love, his desire. It's this strange predilection in God's heart. I want to love you at your lowest, right? That's what fluids, that's what they do. They're always looking for the lowest spot, right? Like you stab an inflatable pool, the water's going to go out and it's going to try and find the lowest spot. His mercy is looking for the lowest place. So on Holy Thursday, what do you see Jesus doing? What do you see God doing, the God of the universe? He goes down to the lowest place. Our feet, obviously, anatomically, but he's also looking for the lowest places in my heart, the most fertile places to receive the seed of his divine life as bridegroom. The most fertile soil that I have in me is whatever I've buried at the bottom. The deepest shame, the deepest regret, the deepest remorse, the deepest wounds, that's where his mercy wants to descend. And then he asks that question as he gets back up and he looks at them, he says, do you understand what I've done for you? It's no. I don't know what it is to across the infinity of time and space, to become flesh, to suffer as a creature beneath your own creation, to take on as your own the consequences of our own sinfulness and to be prepared to shoulder the weight of humanity's sin and to skydive into the bottom of the pit of hell to rescue? I don't understand what you've done for me, but I'd love to try. That's Thursday. Friday, one of the things I think about on Good Friday, going back to those liturgies that we used to serve back at St. Mary's, and I still do this now with my altar servers for Good Friday. We would process in, and you'd have us all lay prostrate in front of the altar for a good chunk of time. It was the first time I ever did that, right? Obviously did it in a significant way at ordination. But like the embodied feeling of laying your life down, like feeling the cold marble underneath your body. And you would say, Father Damian, back in high school, all the time in your homilies at Life Teen, that if you want to have life, you have to lay it down. If you want to live, you have to die. And I quoted you, I remember my very first Mass, I quoted you in that very first homily at St. Mary's. But like on Good Friday, what do we see happening? We are seeing not the execution or the unfortunate conclusion of a life that was full of promise that got cut in its prime. No, what we see is him deliberately going to this place. No one takes my life from me. I lay it down freely of my own accord. I'm choosing this, right? The God who created the vastness of the cosmos permits himself to be blindfolded and arrested and spit upon and beaten and scourged and all of those things. He stretches out his hands, who holds the mountains with his will. He stretches out his hands to receive the nails out of love, right? It's an excess of love. Pope Benedict, he asked the question, is there a more mad eros than that which led the Son of Man to take on his own the consequences of our own sinfulness? Like what you see manifested on the cross is not just simply the cruelty of humanity. What you see manifested is the absurdity, the excess of God's love as bridegroom for humanity. It's the logic of the cosmos, that he squanders a whole universe so that in one tiny spot there could be life, right? Every springtime, he bursts forth trillions of seeds so that one or two can find soil. Like his love is marked by a superfluous excess that is just beyond our capacity. It's just so not measured. What you see on the cross is an unmeasured love. That song, Reckless Love, that's what you see. Holy Saturday, what do you see? You see the bridegroom in this rescue mission going to the pit of hell, demanding from the Lord of death, the keys of death, to say, this bride who you've taken, she's mine, right? It's like the story in Cleveland, Amanda Knight, Michelle Berry, Gina DeHazers, those girls who were captured by Ariel Castro, held in bondage for 10 years in his basement. And imagine it would be like this, like the SWAT officers who come into the basement, rescue these girls and say, like, the guy who's been tormenting you, who's been terrorizing you, yeah, he's sitting in handcuffs and shackles over there. He's not going to hurt you ever again. And then it'd be like our story would be something like, then one of the SWAT officers bends the knee with this gigantic proposal ring, engagement ring, and asks one of the girls, will you marry me? Like, I want to rescue you, and will you spend eternity with me? Like, that's what's happening on Holy Saturday. You hear it in the Exultet, where things of heaven are wed to those of earth, the divine to the human. It's this spousal explosion that is a rescue mission that is beyond our wildest imagination. Yeah.
And speaking of spousal explosion, as we can for a podcast that's not explicit, but is explicitly Catholic. I was given a parish mission at our buddy Kubera's parish a couple of weeks ago at St. Mary of the Falls, and talking about the sacraments, and that at the Easter Vigil, the candle that is brought in, the Paschal candle, stands for Christ. Yeah. And the baptismal font stands for the womb of the church. Yep. And the ritual of the church says that candle, if there's going to be baptisms, is immersed once or 3 times into the baptistry or the womb of the church. Yeah. And only after that does new life come out of that.
That's right.
And that's all I had to say at the mission, and I think that's all I have to say here. Yeah. You're like, what? Yeah. There's the bride and the bridegroom.
That's right.
And that's written into the very liturgy of the church. And I remember learning that the first time in the seminary, going, whoa, that's great.
Yeah. If you ever get to St. John Lateran Basilica in Rome, I know you lived in Rome, but in the baptistry in St. John Lateran, you've got inscribed this incredible, like praise of the nuptial mystery of baptism, that from this virginal womb, the church as virginal bride and mother gives birth to innumerable children who she has conceived through the miraculous divine seed. Like it's inscribed around the church, the Pope's cathedral. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. Christians are born, you don't sign up for it. You're born.
There'll be almost 500 of those baptisms in our diocese this year too, which is
That's
pretty great.
extraordinary. Yeah, so much for a dying church, right?
Yeah. So for the past few weeks, I've been doing a book study on Jesus, the bridegroom. And one of the biggest realizations of the group that I'm with is that marriage, the sacrament of marriage, it's not an analogy. It's marriage is an icon of Christ's love for us, and that it's just a mirror and a glimpse of how much God loves us. And I think a lot of times we can inverse that.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's the realization of like, no, it's only a glimmer and a speck.
Yeah, I think of like the experience of so I teach and I've taught in every grade school that I've been assigned to, and the experience of trying to answer questions, little kids, grade school kids, they ask questions that are so above their pay grade, and you have to figure out a way to translate an answer into something that's comprehensible to the mind of a 10-year-old. And there's many moments where I'm like, okay, I'm looking for an analogy, I'm looking for a way to explain it, and I'm like stammering, trying to find the right words. And I think the Lord kind of did the same thing, where he's like, okay, the relationship I have with you that I want with you, it's like marriage. The least inadequate analogy I can give you is it's like a marriage. That's the iconography, right? It's the least inadequate analogy. It far surpasses it, but it is an accurate description of the relationship, a total gift of self. Yeah.
And the reason that there is no marriage in heaven is because heaven is marriage between God and man.
That's
But
right.
on this side of the veil, both our sacrament
Yeah.
and your sacrament as a married woman show people what God's love is like. We do in an eschatological way because marriage is, so we've renounced the greatness, the goodness of marriage for the kingdom, but you and Phil have chosen to answer the call to the sacrament of holy matrimony to show between your love for each other, to give us an icon of what God's love looks like, and especially in the begetting of children.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. So our sacraments, our vocations are very similar because they're both nuptial.
And we need each other. Like you need us to be reminded that your spouse is not the sum total and end of your heart's satisfaction, right? And we need you as a married person to be reminded that our vocation, we're not just ordained bachelors, that we're meant to be given. Our lives are meant to be laid down. We are meant to be fathers in a true sense. Yeah, it helps shape each other's vision of what we're doing.
So I didn't plan on this. I didn't plan on a lot of things on this show, but as you were speaking, it made me think, first, when it comes to the Song of Songs, Mother Natalia and the bridegroom order at the end of their night prayer every night, they sing or chant a chapter of the Song of Songs, which is really cool. And then it also made me think of Father Mark Riley's parish, St. Michael the Archangel, which is on the corner of Scranton and Clark Avenue. It was originally German, so the wood and the stained glass windows have German influence. And my favorite glass window is of Jesus, the morning of the resurrection, with Mary Magdalene. And Jesus is standing there because, remember, she thought he was the gardener.
Yep.
And he's standing there with a shovel in his hand. Why? Because he actually is the gardener, and what does he want to do? He wants to plant his divine life into our hearts.
That's right.
And so at that moment, we started in the garden, there's the agony in the garden. Now he's resurrected in the garden, and the garden is a place where life's supposed to be. So once again, we're reminded that he wants to share this with us. And the first person he shows that love to is the Magdalene, who had 7 demons driven out of her, and who Augustine thinks those were the 7 deadly sins. So again, he went to the lowest to bring someone in, and she didn't, no one got him fully at first, but boy, what a privilege to be the first to see his resurrection.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And that story parallels the Song of Songs, right?
Yeah.
Where have you taken my beloved? Right?
Yeah.
I've looked for him and I cannot find him. He called me by name. That's all right there.
It's great. So if this Holy Week, maybe some of our viewers or listeners haven't been to church in a while and they want to come to the cathedral, they certainly can,
Yeah.
but they also might want to come to where you are. So tell us a little bit about your parish.
So St. Bartholomew Parish in Middleburg Heights, that's where I've been assigned since June. It is an awesome, awesome community, growing community, great school, just beautiful people. It's been really, really fun. And we've got some great altar servers, great reverence, great beauty, great music. It's just a really wonderful, wonderful place. So we're in Middleburg Heights, right there on Bagley, on the corner of Bagley and Pearl, basically. Yeah.
And you also have a podcast.
Yes.
Slaking Thirst. Want to tell us a little bit about where they could find you there?
Yeah, sure. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, any of those places, Father Ryan Mann and I, he's a priest of the Diocese of Cleveland. Years ago now, a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, said, you guys should put your homilies online. And we both thought, I don't know, there's going to be like 5 homeschool kids who are getting punished listening to our homilies. That's going to be it. And turns out that wasn't exactly the case. It's really been a beautiful thing to see how it's grown. So all of our talks, homilies, reflections, things like that go on Slaking Thirst. You can go to slakingthirst.com. SLAKING. It's a good SAT word. It means to quench, to satisfy. It comes from the Catechism, the whole idea. It's going to be one of the scrutiny gospels during Lent, the idea of Jesus meeting the woman at the well, where he says, give me a drink, right? If you knew who was asking, you would have asked him, and he would have given you water that wells up to eternal life, that this mutual desire to slake the thirst, to quench the desire. So that's where it is. So all the talks and things like that are there.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.